Three, two, one.
Hello and welcome to week 10 of the NFL season. Games are kicking off in just about 27 minutes as we get our final international game of the season. This will be the New York Giants at the Carolina Panthers in Germany. Should be interesting. A couple 2-7 teams that we got sent over there. We will talk about all the games, including some of my games of the week, my sit start suggestions, and my picks against the spread. But first, let's kick off by talking about Thursday Night Football. It was a big divisional matchup in the AFC North on Thursday night as the Cincinnati Bengals went to battle the Baltimore Ravens. Of course, earlier this season, Baltimore got a 3-point win in Cincinnati. The Bengals came in at 4-5, really needing to be able to get a victory to kind of stay in the playoff race. They were not able to get it. A 35-34 Baltimore Ravens victory. The Ravens now 7-3, 4-6 for the Cincinnati Bengals. I think that puts them in a really rough position as they go down the stretch. I think it's going to take at least 10 wins to get in the AFC, just looking at the landscape and how many teams are there and the strong competition. Now sitting on 4 wins in 10 games with 7 games left to go. That means they would need to go 6-1 at least down the stretch. They have a couple games with the Pittsburgh Steelers. Steelers have looked really good this season. They have a couple other big challenging games left on the schedule. I think it's going to be tough for the Bengals to get back there. Yeah, they were 9-8 last year. I think 9-8 could even be a little bit of a challenge. You'd have to go 5-2 down the stretch. They just haven't been consistent. They haven't been healthy, and they just haven't been that great. Really disappointing season, I think, for them. A lot of injuries out there. If you rostered any New Orleans Saints wide receivers, there's a good chance they're on IR. Rashid Shaheed, Chris Olave, Bub Means, all on IR. Going to be interesting to see what Derek Carr and that team can do. They host the Falcons today. Not feeling very optimistic about that. Drake London does look like he's going to play for the Falcons, but a whole host of players are out this week. T. Higgins was out again on Thursday night. Michael Pittman has been ruled out, missing with that back injury. As I mentioned, Chris Olave is already out. This morning for the Germany game, we thought we were going to see the debut of Jonathan Brooks, the rookie taken by the Carolina Panthers, who hasn't really gotten into the game, but he did not end up being active. He is not going to play today. However, Chuba Hubbard, his running mate, just got a big contract extension, so probably looking at some kind of a long-term split there. Trevor Lawrence is not going to play today. That means Mac Jones will get the start. They host the Minnesota Vikings. Not real optimistic. I think it's kind of on to next year for the Jacksonville Jaguars as well. Dak Prescott on IR for the Dallas Cowboys is going to have season-ending surgery at 3-5. I think they're really fading from the playoff picture, so it kind of clarifies things there. It's, looking like it's the Commanders and the Eagles there. And the Commanders have a huge game today hosting the Pittsburgh Steelers, a couple of kind of surprise teams that between the two of them only have 4 losses combined and have 13 wins. Should be real interesting. Well, that takes us to some of the games that are happening today. I think it's time for my games of the week. Week 10 has some fascinating matchups. I'm going to give you 4 games that are going on. My favorites from the early window, late window, and then our prime time games to wrap up the week. From the early window, I'm going with the 5-4 Denver Broncos at the 8-0 Kansas City Chiefs. The morning window, the early window is much better than the late window today. Only 3 late window games, and they're all have their own questions. There are quite a few good ones. I was on the fence about going Steelers Commanders, but I went here. The Broncos were 5-3 before last week, seemingly surging towards the playoffs. If the playoffs started today, they would actually be in as the 7th seed, which is an interesting situation. Chiefs, only unbeaten team in the league. These back and forth divisional games are always tough. Last year, the Broncos did actually beat the Chiefs in one of their games. The only time they have beaten Patrick Mahomes since he's been the starter in Kansas City. I don't think I'm expecting that today, especially in Kansas City. But can Denver rebound? Can they look a little better than they did last week? They were beaten very soundly by the Baltimore Ravens in Baltimore. If they really want to be a playoff team, they have to show more. Late window games, I mentioned there's only 3, and they're all kind of all over the board. But I'm going with the Philadelphia Eagles at the Dallas Cowboys. Divisional matchups are always kind of good and intense. The Eagles 6-2 look like they are trying to crest toward a playoff berth. The Cowboys 3-5. Cooper Rush is out there. We may see some Trey Lance. I think I've seen all I need to see of Trey Lance, but Dallas probably going to give him a couple of looks. CeeDee Lamb with a sprained AC joint is still expected to play. The Cowboys will need to throw. They haven't really been able to run. This is not the Dallas Cowboys team of a couple of years ago. The wheels feel like they are trending toward spinning off the bus, but can they stabilize a little bit here at home against the Eagles? Sunday Night Football might be actually one of the better games on the Sunday slate. That is the Detroit Lions at 7-1 at the 6-3 Houston Texans. Both these teams have lofty postseason aspirations. The Lions looking like potentially the best team in the league, and I know Kansas City is undefeated, but the Lions have just been dominant and they have beaten all comers. The Texans, meanwhile, they're pretty safe in their own division. They have a solid lead over the Colts, who they've also swept with the Jaguars and the other teams in that division kind of fading away. But they need to play probably a little better if they want to make a move in the AFC South. So can they step up? Can they be a little bit stronger in this? We will see. Obviously Jaguars Titans not a threat to the Texans. I don't think the Colts are really a threat to the Texans right now either. But it's not about winning the division for Houston, and that means they need to win some of these big games against big opponents if they really want to make a stand in the playoffs. Falling to 6-4 would put them probably more in line with being the 4th seed at best. Monday Night Football. This looked like a great game when the season was starting, but now the Dolphins come in 2-6. The Rams are 4-4. They are actually surging a little bit in the very tight and compact NFC West. They will want to get a win. The Dolphins, if they lose this one, their season is pretty much over. I think they're quickly fading out of the playoff picture in general now. Anyway, with 9 games left to go, they'd probably have to win 8 of them. They would need to get that win on Monday Night Football. I'm not sure it's going to happen, but we shall see. Well, that'll do it for my games of the week. How about we look at some sit-start projections? Last week's sit-starts were okay. Could have been a little bit better. In my starts, I went 2-2. Burrow and Cade Otton were great. Puka Nacua throws a punch, gets ejected. Kyron Williams didn't get quite enough volume. In my sits, I was 4-0. Was dead on with all of those. So let's see how we do. If you followed this for a while, I do 1 sit and 1 start out of the 4 major positions. So let's go into this week. My start is Kirk Cousins of the Atlanta Falcons. He's up to QB 12 on the season. I know there's a few slow games in there, but this week he's in New Orleans battling the reeling Saints. The Falcons are a perfect 4-0 in division games. I think they're going to be 5-0 at the end of Sunday. I am firing up Cousins. Meanwhile, I'm sitting Cooper Rush of the Dallas Cowboys. Look, he's filling in for Dak Prescott, who's going to miss the rest of the season now with a hamstring injury. But the Cowboys have struggled. Dak is only QB 20 on the season. Rush is serviceable, but he is not really a starter for me in any fantasy category. My running backs, you know what? They pulled him off IR. He is good to go. He is in my lineup, and that is Christian McCaffrey of the San Francisco 49ers. Look, I know he has not played this season. He's dealing with a pretty serious injury, and he's only going to be making his debut, and it's already week 10. I know it's also possible he splits some carries. Jordan Mason has looked good, but he is still Christian McCaffrey. If he is active on Sunday, which it looks like he is going to be, he's starting for me. My sit is Javonte Williams. I love Williams' potential. I love the Denver Broncos, but to this point, potential is all we have to hang on to with Williams. Sure, we've seen some great games mixed in there, even this season, but he's in a timeshare. He's facing a stout Chiefs defense on the road. He's a flex consideration, but he is not a top 24 option for me. Wide receivers, I am firing up Devontae Adams of the New York Jets. We've seen Adams heavily targeted in all 3 games since joining Aaron Rodgers. We haven't always seen big results. That kind of changed in week 9. He got 7 passes for 91 yards and a touchdown. He's developing real chemistry again with Rodgers, and with Alan Lazard injured and Mike Williams in Pittsburgh, it's Adams and Garrett Wilson, and I'm firing him up. Speaking of Mike Williams, he is my sit this week. He was traded to the Pittsburgh Steelers. Look, I know Pittsburgh needs weapons, and they got that with Williams. He should become a part of the team's passing attack in Pittsburgh as they look toward the postseason, but it's not a robust passing offense at this point, and he hasn't been there very long. George Pickens is still number 1 there. It's a run-first team. He just isn't worth rostering for me this week. And at tight end, my start is Kyle Pitts. I think I mentioned I like the matchup here with the Saints for the Falcons. He's tight end 5 on the season. It hasn't always been pretty, but he's been steadily being a part of the offense in a bigger way with Kirk Cousins. Drake London's a little banged up, but they're facing a reeling Saints team. I am firing him up. Meanwhile, my sit is Cole Kmet of the Chicago Bears. You know, you and I had as many fantasy points as Kmet did last week. He recorded a 0. In fact, in 8 games, he has 2 games with 15 or more points and 5 games with less than 4 points. That's not the kind of reliability you are looking for. Kmet is a good player, but this Chicago Bears pass offense is a work in progress, very uneven. It's been hard to get excited about starting him or Keenan Allen or Rome Odunze. Even at times, DJ Moore has not really lived up to what I think his potential is. Maybe they'll get there. They have an embarrassment of riches and just not enough robustness in their pass offense. Well, that'll do it for sit starts. So hopefully you're getting your lineup set and getting ready. Remember, games kick off in about 15 minutes. Before I get out of here, let's go with my picks against the spread. Last week, I was 7-8, which dropped me to 70-68 on the season. And this week didn't start off well. I took a gamble. I thought the Ravens would win by a decent margin. I took them -5.5, obviously only a 1-point victory. So I am 70-69 as we turn the page towards Sunday morning. In this first game, I took the Carolinas Panthers +4.5. I actually took the Panthers to win outright against the Giants. Call me crazy, but I think the Panthers are getting a little bit better. I am just not on the Giants. I took the New England Patriots +6.5 in Chicago. I think the Bears will get the outright victory, but I think the Patriots will keep it reasonably close. Chicago's offense has not been running away from people. I took the Buffalo Bills -3.5 in Indianapolis. I don't know if moving to Joe Flacco was the right move, but I know that this Bills team is hot, probably one of the better teams in the NFL right now. They're 7-2. I know Keon Coleman is going to be out, but I like Amari Cooper. I like Khalil Shakir, and mostly I like a now healthy James Cook against a poor Indianapolis Colts team. I took the Denver Broncos +9.5 in Kansas City. Look, I'm not crazy. The Chiefs are going to win this game. I think they're going to be 9-0, but none of their games have really been blowouts. And I think Denver, with this strong defense and a very feisty spirit, will keep it under a 10-point game. I took the Atlanta Falcons -3.5 in New Orleans. I think 3.5 is kind of low for what could be the potential here. I took the Tampa Bay Buccaneers +5.5 at home against the 49ers. I think the 49ers will win and move to 5-4, but Tampa Bay has a lot of fight despite their injuries. I think this one will be close. I took the Pittsburgh Steelers +2.5 in Washington against the Commanders. The Commanders have been a great Cinderella story, but I actually took the Steelers as an outright victor here. I think that they can get the win here in Washington. I think they are cruising toward the playoffs as well. I took the Minnesota Vikings -4.5 in Jacksonville. I think they will get the win. I took the Los Angeles Chargers -7.5 over the Tennessee Titans. Will Levis is back in. I don't think that's great for Tennessee. I took the Philadelphia Eagles -7.5 against the Dallas Cowboys. I think the Eagles will pretty handily win this game. I took the New York Jets +0.5 in Arizona. This is an interesting matchup. I know the Jets are only 3-6, and the Cardinals are technically in first place in the NFC West, but I think the Jets are a team that are on a mission, as I mentioned, 10 being kind of a magic number for getting into the playoffs. They really have to go 7-1 down the stretch here. I think they need to win all of their potentially winnable games because they still have another date with Buffalo on that schedule, and I think in Arizona, that is a winnable game. If the Jets can't get this win, I think that really will knock them out of the playoff standing. I took the Lions -3.5 in Houston. I like the Texans, but I think this Lions team is a team of destiny. And I took the Los Angeles Rams -2.5 at home against the Miami Dolphins. Look, I liked Miami going into the season, but with injuries and kind of just a bad energy, a bad vibe, I don't think they can get this win. And I think they've really faded from the postseason picture. So those are my picks against the spread. That'll pretty much do it for me this week, week 10. Hopefully, you guys have a wonderful NFL week out there. Don't forget the kickoff for our final international game in Germany is in about 12 minutes. So hopefully you will enjoy that and the rest of the week 10 slate. See you guys next week.